Scotland and England have not exactly had the nicest relationship throughout history. Centuries of warfare, hostile alliances, religious disputes and economic quarrels led to both nations absolutely despising each other. But as you'll know, the two countries united in 1707 to form the Kingdom of Great Britain. But given their rivalry, this raises an obvious question: why? Why did England and Scotland unite, given how much they hated each other? In the late 16th century, England was ruled by Queen Elizabeth I, who famously didn't have any children. And in the end, she chose her cousin, King James VI of Scotland, to succeed her, primarily because he was Protestant and that was important. She died in 1603, and James VI of Scotland was thus crowned James I of England. He began his rule by declaring that he would unite England and Scotland into a single kingdom. But, to put it bluntly, he failed miserably. The reason for this was that in both kingdoms there was a lot of resistance to unification. The Scottish were afraid that they'd be forgotten in favour of England's greater wealth, and the English were concerned that the new Scottish king would rule as an absolutist and make England a subject of the Scottish. James's successor, Charles I, was far too unpopular to attempt to unify the states and was soon too busy having his head cut off to really give it a go. However, it was Oliver Cromwell, the Lord Protector of the new Republic, that managed to briefly unify these realms. He did this with some good old-fashioned force, and he created the Commonwealth of England. Of course, he would himself die, and the Commonwealth died shortly after him. And when the Stuart dynasty was restored, the realms were separated once more. Despite being politically independent again, Scotland's troubles were here to stay. The English Parliament passed laws which prevented foreign ships from trading with the country. Furthermore, England's constant wars with Scotland's main trading partner slowed Scotland's economy down too. Fearing economic ruin, a group of Scottish nobles launched the Darien Scheme, a plan to colonise part of what's now Panama in Central America. The hope being that this new colony could be used as an overland route to trade between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. The scheme was very expensive and required using a fifth of Scotland's total wealth at the time. A colony, New Edinburgh, was established here in 1698 and would stand the test of time for 2 whole years. It was at this point that disease and a Spanish blockade killed the colony, meaning all of the money was lost, thereby bankrupting many Scottish nobles. The Scottish had hoped that the English would open up trade to them to help them get some of the money back, but fun fact, no. And thus, when Queen Anne took the throne, the Scottish Parliament passed the Security Act, which meant that the Scottish throne would go to whoever wasn't the monarch of England after Anne died. And Anne's ministers responded with the Alien Act. This made all Scots foreigners within England and importantly embargoed the country. But Anne promised to repeal this if Scotland merged with England. Getting support for this wasn't going to be easy, but the English had a trick up their sleeve: shameless bribery. And this was enough to get the 1707 Act of Union passed. Against the overwhelming majority of Scottish people's wishes, by the way. And in spite of some rioting, the anti-British sentiment in Scotland didn't last too long, because 1, Scotland's church and legal system remained independent, and 2, martial law. And so with that, the kingdoms of Scotland and England ceased to exist, and instead a new nation, the United Kingdom of Great Britain, was born.